In this episode of the Business of E-commerce, I talk with Joseph Lieberman about how to deal with unhappy customers. This is the Business of E-commerce, episode 104. Welcome to the Business of E-commerce, the show that helps e-commerce retailers start, launch, and grow their e-commerce business. I'm your host, Charles Pileski, and I'm here today with Joseph Lieberman. Joseph is the Director of Marketing at Antlion Audio, where he focuses on growing the company through brand awareness and earned media. I asked Joseph on the show today to talk about how to deal with unhappy customers. So hey, Joseph, how are you doing today?
Doing great. I'm a happy customer currently.
Well, I'm happy to have you on the show. This is one of those topics that I love chatting about, and not many people talk about this side of e-commerce. And I feel like it's one of those things, as even the owner of the business or anyone in customer service, you spend a ton of your time dealing with like the 1% of users that are unhappy. Most orders, going out, things just work great, hopefully. But those orders that don't cause this like eruption in time and everything. So how do you deal with this? Or what are some best practices for this?
So to be clear, as the marketing person in our company, I view customer service as a very different thing than, say, maybe the customer service manager at our company, who's in the trenches, as it were. Like, he's the one, emailing and talking to these people constantly and that kind of thing. So when it comes to the marketing side, my approach of dealing with might be a little different than the expectation of, I need to send this guy an email. I need to, get his shipping info. I need to figure out what the problem is, those kinds of things. I'm thinking about more of the big scheme of things. What is going on here, right? What has caused somebody to be upset, and what systems can we fix that will prevent this from happening again? So on the one hand, unhappy customers are bad. But on the other hand, unhappy customers are good. And so I actually kind of want to talk about, if I may, that second part, which is how can unhappy customers be good? So rather than sort of get bogged down in the details of like, how do you fix a problem, I guess.
Yeah, I like that. I feel like some of the unhappy customers, they're the ones that kind of push you further along to push you to do better, for lack of a better term there, where you have to get better at dealing with certain issues, and over time, every time you set up one of these systems, it makes you in the long run better as a business owner.
Yeah, absolutely. The not only creating a system to fix a problem, but the fact that a new problem, like a new unhappy customer, from the marketing perspective, is an opportunity for a story, right? And in marketing and marketing your business, you're always driven by these stories. How do you resolve somebody's problem is a great story to tell. And it is a great story for them to tell. So not only do you get better by building out these systems, but you can use the individual issue as a springboard for promotion if you handle it right. And that's the key, right? And that's why when we talk about customer service is this massive time sink. This one guy ate up an entire day of my work, If you look at it from that perspective, it's really easy just be like, it's just not worth it. Just, have them return the unit, whatever it is, have them send it back, and we'll just keep selling to the people who are happy, right? And I think a lot of businesses fall into that trap because it is so morale breaking to deal with problems, right? It's a big time sink. It points out flaws in your systems. It points out flaws in your product. It's, unhappy people are generally angry and grumpy and they're just unpleasant to deal with. And so it's easier just to write them off. At Antlion, since I came on board, one of the things we've adopted are a bunch of strategies to really turn that around. Not to say that we had that mentality before, but to say, beyond just fixing people's issues, how can we turn somebody who is unhappy into somebody who is actually going to go out of their way to talk about us? And it's so much easier to do that than it is to take somebody who's initially happy and make them talk about you. And that's the most fascinating thing that I've learned here.
Oh,
Is
okay. Yeah, I've never heard this one.
Yeah. So imagine this scenario. I'm just going to make up a scenario, but customer A, he purchases something, he gets it in the mail, works great. Okay. He got exactly what he wanted, right? Customer B gets the product, there's a problem with it. Let's just say it's defective right out of the box, lemon unit. Happens in electronics, happens probably in everything. He's mad. He makes a post about it on Reddit. Now, he doesn't go out of his way to contact us. He's just mad, right? We've got a tool as an example of a thing we use, which is we use a company Brand24, but there are many like it. It's basically a scraping tool that monitors people mentioning us. We check every single thing that somebody says about us. So we spot this on Reddit. Now, I reach out directly. This is something I do as part of my marketing job. I reach out directly to this customer and say, hey, I saw that you posted this thing. I'll even do it on Reddit publicly. I'm so sorry you have a problem. Let's figure out how to fix it and make it better for you. Now, it seems like a really small, innocuous thing, right? But first of all, if it's a public forum like Reddit, other people see that response. You start to get known in your circles and of Reddit and other public places. Like, hey, this, I've had other people, for instance, on Reddit, they'll see a complaint and they'll tag me in it before the Brand24 scraping tool gets to it, right? As an example. So you build up that reputation, but also now a customer is dealing not just with some flunky that they had to reach out to. They've been proactively reached out to by the company, right? And that is an experience you don't forget as a customer. Now you fix their problem, you get them working perfectly, and the next thing you know, they're out there talking about the great experience they had. I have people apologize publicly about what they said about us, fairly regularly. As a company that sells tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of microphones, I'm not saying we get so many complaints that we are constantly having to, put out fires, but I am saying that when problems arise, more times than not, we walk away with a customer who is happier having dealt with us than they were or might have been if they just got a working product, which is really oxymoronic in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I feel like that happens a lot because the customers that are happy, you tend to write a review, or you tend to go above and beyond only if you're surprisingly unhappy or somehow surprisingly positive, which is probably more difficult to do, right? You order a microphone and there's not many other, they get the microphone. So they can't get that much of unless you're going to send them 3 of them, which you're probably not going to do. Sometimes it's hard to pleasantly surprise. Yeah, it's hard to just pleasantly surprise people in that. But when they're unhappy, that's when you get the reviews. So the reviews are always skewed, I feel like, in the negative direction.
It's always a fight. I mean, every e-commerce company, it's always a fight to get positive reviews, right? You're always begging for change out there with your hat.
Yep. Yeah, and it's one of those things where a lot of the things that go wrong aren't even your fault. There's a lot of times maybe it's a manufacturer, you're selling their product who's defective. Maybe it was just defective, right?
We'll get 1-star reviews because USPS lost their package, right?
Yeah.
Completely outside our control.
Yeah, I've had that happen before.
I get that makes you mad, right? And it is, I certainly would validate your feelings as a customer. Like, hey, I'm totally sorry this happened. But, it's frustrating as a company to be dinged for things that you did everything right and still you're getting that 1 star.
I've had that happen before where their UPS driver backed into the box and crushed it, and they gave a 1-star review. I said, how do you feel like this was my fault? I get it. I'll make this right. But, 1-star review, it feels like that's a little aggressive. Maybe you should review, UPS with 1 star and not my e-commerce site. So I've definitely had that happen before, and I know how it fails. So
that it does bring up the other side, right? Which is a lot of times you don't get to somebody quick enough and they've already left a review. How do you get them to edit it? And that's again where this, what's the ratio off the top of your head? What do you think the ratio is of people who buy something to leave a review, right? How many sales do you have to get 1 review?
I'm guessing it's probably way worse than 1%.
It's something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know off the top of my head. I was actually just asking.
Yeah, no.
But everybody listening probably can do some quick, napkin math and figure it out for themselves. It's probably 1% or less. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which means getting somebody to change the review is literally worth 100 or more sales, right? And that's the mentality you have to have going into this idea of customer service as marketing. right? Yes, it's going to take you all day, but what is 100 sales worth to you, right? And so when it comes to finding this person um, in the wild, as it were, right? The problem with something like Amazon is getting in touch with them is very difficult, potentially. You can send them an email. But when you're connecting with somebody on Reddit, or we have actually a live chat, right? It's worth asking the question after you've solved the problem. Hey, just out of curiosity, did you write any negative reviews? It's okay to ask this thing because, and then explain your position. Look, as a small company, as a consumer, as a customer focused company, you know, this is our livelihood. And, if you could change your review, it would be a great help to us. And you just be honest and open and human. Usually, if they've left a bad review and are in direct contact with you, you can fix that. If you just send blind emails to them, even after you fixed it, maybe sometimes, but way less often than you can get out of taking that extra time, that soul crushing extra time where you could be doing something better.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I think the closer you are to the customer, the more likely they are to positively respond to that, right? Like I've done it before, even on the phone. And I remember
Yep.
there was one guy that I forget what happened, and he left I think it was like a 1 out of 5. It was like a 1 or 2 star review, and spent like hours dealing with this issue. And he said, "All right, out of 5 stars, I'll upgrade you to a 4." I said, "Okay, thank you." He wasn't willing to go the full 5, and I think we'd like 100% like solved every issue, but he's like, "Still, I want to be accurate. I'll give you 4." I'm like, "All right, "This sounds fair." It took a lot, like you said, it took like hours of work to go from that 2 star to that 4 star review. And he literally put like edited and had a whole story. It was this long block of text, but it was very nice of him, right? Because then now he went out of his way. He didn't have to do that, right? Like at that point, because that's the thing. Now that you solve their problem, they really don't need to go back. They got what they wanted at this point, and you're just hoping and asking nicely. Hopefully, it's not begging at that point, but it's just nicely asking, kind of, hey, if we were able to solve your problem, it would be great if you could go do this. And like you said, small company, and it really matters to us.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate from my experiences as well. Yeah, you're not always going to be able to turn a 1 into a 5, but even a 1 into a 4 is such a massive change on, you know, uh, for, what is what do your products have? How many reviews? We sold 250,000 mics or so, and some of our products have 100 reviews only. Some of the, like the newer one, the one I'm wearing right now, right, we have about 150 reviews, I think, on Amazon. So like one change of a 1 to a 4 is actually a pretty significant change as a percent. We could do that 10 times. It might actually increase our 4.0 to a 4.2 or something.
Well, other thing you don't realize too is people looking at the reviews. Sometimes I've had it before where we're selling into, it was someone was buying quite a few units, like 100 plus units, and they were looking at the reviews, and they brought up this review from like years before that, someone that randomly just bought it, like this is like very short little, and it was like a 1 star review and like 3 word review, and they were buying like hundreds of units, and they're like, "Yeah, how about that review?" I'm like, how did you find, like, it's on page like 12, like how did you dig through every review and find that one? And just like, and they want to talk about that guy, and like on the phone, I want to know what happened. So it's amazing how far people will dig and how much those reviews really matter. And it's like shocking when you realize people are reading through all of these big customers usually.
Yeah, and I think at its soul, that's why um, unhappy customers are what I would call more valuable than a happy customer, right? Individually, they are way more important. And, to just keep hammering it home, yeah, man, it is the worst to have to deal with them. Like, no doubt, nobody wants to deal with an unhappy customer. But they're worth so much more than an individual happy customer that it's easier to turn a frown upside down, I guess, than it is to make somebody smiling grin
Yep.
like a Cheshire cat.
Well, how do you actually, what are some ways to actually make them happy? Because at that point, I've been in situations before where somebody needed something for a particular date, right? Like they overnighted something, they needed it for Friday, and it came damaged by the shipping company, right? So like at that point, how do you turn that front upside down? Like, what are even the mechanisms to try
Oh
to do
man,
that?
yeah. So there are a lot of different types of problems. I think one of these sort of systems and tools we talked about at the very beginning is to really understand what types of problems you'll commonly encounter, right? And have a plan on for dealing with them, like that you can go to. If you're a small company, you can just, like just a couple of people, then you can just wing it. As you get to be a larger company, of course, you can't just be like, yeah, sure, I'll send you whatever, I'll send that Priority International. It'll cost $400, to Serbia. Uh, so you need to have a plan as to, what is it worth, and what are the likely issues that you're going to encounter, right? So a shipping issue, as an example, like some sort of hard deadline shipping issue. Well, first of all, if you've already missed the deadline, you're screwed. Like there's nothing you can do to make it up to that customer, right? You can do the best you can. Um, try to understand their plight and try to explain, to the best of your ability that. Um, I'll say this: it's always your fault. UPS runs over your package. It's your fault, right? Maybe not your responsibility to fix, or rather, let me rephrase that. Let me phrase it like this: it wasn't my fault is never a valid answer to an upset customer, right? It's not what they want to hear, and it doesn't help them in any way.
Yeah, it's usually the fastest way to make someone more upset is saying it's not
Right.
somehow putting the fault on you.
It wasn't me,
It wasn't me,
like Shaggy
or
says.
yeah, yeah. You never want. That's like literally, if you want to make someone more upset, say exactly that, because that's how to do
Right.
it.
So the approach has to be, in a situation where you can't fix anything. I'm real sorry this happened. I'd like to make it up to you. What can I do? Put the ball in their court. Just like most negotiations, you tend to be surprised at what people will ask for. Usually it's less than you'd offer. So I'm always a fan of just asking what it is they want. Not only do you then get to fulfill exactly what they want, but usually it's less than you'd even be done to begin with. Um, so that's probably the hardest scenario, though, is a situation you simply can't fix, right? You've missed the deadline, the wedding has happened. What are you going to do? They're not going to have another wedding. you know uh, the more common things are like, hey, it arrived damaged, broken, the quality wasn't what I was expecting, or this or that or the other thing. um, sometimes it's a situation where you can't resolve it also in those situations, right? Hey, this thing was not what I was expecting. I can't change that, necessarily. But you can be like, hey, tell me what you were expecting. What can we do in the future to deliver that product to you? What is missing here? So one, there's a learning opportunity there, and two, really, generally speaking, people just want somebody to talk to, right? They just want to tell people what they think. Um, and again, usually, if you can get to them before they write that review, you will prevent a negative review, right? You might not get a review; they'll just return it. And you can ask them for that. Hey, it's you have to be a little bit diplomatic about it, but uh, you know, say at the end of the day, you're basically saying, hey, please don't review our product based on this. I'm sorry you didn't, there was a miscommunication, and we'll do what we can to fix it. And sometimes that might actually include changing the page, right, to communicate better. Maybe you missed a detail. Be willing to accept that, hey, maybe I messed up. Maybe the description wasn't accurate enough, and that confused this person and possibly other people, right? So there again, we have that system that we can fix, which is in this case a description. I don't know. I guess be creative, I guess, is the long story short here is don't just send people canned responses.
Yeah, I think the canned response is also probably one of those ways. If you want to quickly piss someone off, you can like sense the canned response. They're usually like longer, and they kind of have information that doesn't really have to do with anything, and that's just not how people communicate. And when you're getting a canned response, and it's almost
Yeah.
like they're like just like pushing you off, and you're like, all right,
it is not a good experience to ever receive a canned response. Like
Yeah.
there are situations where it makes sense, where like there's just some sort of common thing that needs to be automated,
Yeah,
right?
we received your order. Great, canned
Right.
response.
We received your
Here's
order
your
is
tracking
is a
number.
great
Yeah,
example.
your order shipped. Here's your
Uh,
tracking number. I expect a
even
canned response.
even even the canned response of, hey, we received your support ticket.
Yep.
Like that's fine, right? It explains how long it'll take for a real person to get back to you. That's good. But if the canned we received your support ticket email is followed by another canned response, which is followed by another canned response, because in the back end of a lot of these customer service things, somebody sends it in, somebody looks at it, and they select the canned response, and they click send, right there, and that's the entirety of their interaction. My advice is to avoid that whenever possible.
Hmm.
Uh, you
You
know,
you mentioned getting to the users before they're writing the review, like before they're on Reddit, before they're doing all that. What are some ways that you actually find, like, how do you spot them faster, right? Because a lot of times you don't know there was a problem unless you reach out to every single user, and most don't respond. Hopefully, the ones that have the issue do. But then, what are some ways to actually get that before they erupt and kind of go nuclear?
so what I mentioned earlier, any tool to scrape your product or brand, especially if you're making a unique product like ours is, we scrape the term mod mic and every possible variation somebody could spell it, right? It's our product name. If they're saying that, it's almost certainly about us. Not always negative, not usually negative, in fact. But that's one example. So a scraping tool, absolutely invaluable to us. The other side of it is, so that lets you see basically the entirety of the internet almost, in terms of people talking. The other, of course, social media directly. Obviously, anybody tagging you, anybody just keeping your eye on that. It's one of those tasks that's once a day, twice a day, beginning of day, end of day, that kind of thing. Just double check social media for anything new. You don't want somebody stewing overnight, for instance, on their problem. The third way is give the customers ample ways to reach out to you. So not just support ticket opening, but we have, I mentioned earlier, we have something called Discord. For those who are not gamers out there, Discord is a primarily gamer-centric platform, but it's basically just a live chat room, right? It's staffed by a mixture of actual Antlion employees and a couple of volunteer moderators. And it gives someone to go almost 24 hours a day, basically, and get a response from somebody, right? Before they get to the review, before they get to the support ticket. A lot of times when we advertise it very heavily, go here, say what's up, and you can get live help. I am there pretty much 24/7, as long as I'm awake anyway. I have it on my phone. I'll answer people's support tickets from bed, basically. Like, hey, somebody's got a problem. This is not something that waits. You reply, and sometimes that reply is simply, hey, it's 10 p.m. and I'm currently in bed, but I will get to you tomorrow morning. That is a wonderful reply, by the way.
Yeah, so this is a live. So I've never actually. I'm familiar with Discord, but I've never heard of it used in this way. It's essentially, you're just going to be at this point a live chat room where all your customers can see each other as well. Like this
That's
is,
right. That's the danger of it. If you do it
yeah.
and you screw it up, everybody gets to see it.
This is a
But it
scary
also
idea. All right, I like it.
lets you build an actual community around your business and product, right? So our chat has 3,000, 4,000 people in it. Most of them are not currently chatting. Usually there's a handful of people talking about, I don't know, esports or whatever it is that's on their mind at the moment. And then we have a separate room for support, right, which gets about one message a day, frankly. But yeah, it's all public, and anybody can jump in with their opinions. But it also it allows your community to help each other. It allows your business to be transparent. It's super risky. Don't get me wrong. Like, if you can't staff it, if you can't keep that commitment up, don't do it, because it'll just make you look bad. And it'll give people a place to go. Like, it'll become the exact opposite of what you want. It'll become an echo chamber for negativity. You cannot allow that. But this was our solution, right? Was we have the staff to do it. We can make this a positive environment, and it totally works. 100% works. People are constantly coming into our chat and saying that it was a wonderful experience. Like, they don't use those words. They're just very appreciative. But the gist of it is that they love the ability to go in and talk to the director of marketing. And we were talking just before this started about audio stuff. People have audio problems totally unrelated to our product, right? Like, hey, there's a problem with my headphones. I'll just be like, well, let me tell you about my opinions on how to fix this. Like, it's just a great place for us to grow our brand reputation and turn those unhappy customers into people who literally hang out in our community and promote our products for us.
Yeah, so it's almost like you have your own private, I mean, you mentioned Reddit earlier. It's almost like your own private subreddit about you that you guys not control, but kind of moderate, I guess.
You actually have a subreddit about our product, although it is pretty small, but which is also not controlled by us.
Yeah, but it sounds like this Discord, it's interesting because then people can just randomly, so you're telling people, hey, you have a problem with support, you can write a ticket, you can call this phone number, or you can jump into our live group chat right here and just see what's going on. And they can basically just watch other support tickets in real time at that. I know.
Yep. They get to see the whole system works. Yeah, I'm not saying this is the next thing or the thing that anybody listening should do, but basically having as many ways to get in touch as possible and making them really visible. That Discord link, if you go to our website, it's right on the top of the page. It's always on the top of every single page. We're actually going to be doing a site redesign here next month, and it's going to move to a larger sticky icon on the bottom right. Normally where that support ticket goes, instead of pushing people towards writing a bland email to the bland CS team, we want to get them involved actively into the community. Because the response time's quicker. Because usually, like I said, even if it's not us, somebody will reply. Right? There are 4,000 people there. Somebody's gonna be glance down and say, "Oh, hey, I know what your problem is," or even just, "Hey, the staff doesn't seem to be online right now, but usually they ask for recording, so please put a recording in." So.
Yeah, what I've kind of noticed about support is everyone requesting support has their own kind of way they want to, right? Like some people want to talk on the phone, where other people try their hardest to never talk on a phone. And then some people love live chat. Like everyone has their own thing they want. And you kind of just need to be a little bit of everywhere, not because you're trying to like you're trying to decide, but just because you want to be where the customers want you to be. And some people, like I know with myself, live chat's just not my thing. I either want to go email and go fully asynchronous or phone and fully synchronous. Everything that's like in between is just like social media and live chat. I'm not into.
Oh, see, I'm the opposite.
I
take live chat anytime I can, and here's why. The best thing about live chat is I can write a message, go to another tab, do a little bit of work, and come back to that message. And it's usually much faster than, say, sending an email, which might take 24 hours to get a reply, right? And way less interruptive than making a phone call and sitting on hold or something, or God knows what. It's usually quicker for me and allows me to just continue my workflow. So that's why I like chat as an example.
Yeah, it's funny. Everyone. So even on this with the two of us, we're completely different.
Completely different.
Yeah, so it's one of those things.
As a company, you gotta be willing to embrace every possible strategy to get to that customer before they get to the review button.
Yeah, well, and we had someone the other day, I think it was on Twitter @reply us say you didn't answer your phone. Like it was like after business hours, and like they just called, didn't get an answer, and the way they want to tell us that is on Twitter. And like, oh, okay, I guess that's how this person is communicating with us. And like you said, we have a tool here to monitor social media, and that kind of just popped up and said, oh, wow, there's someone trying to call us right now, apparently, on this. And Twitter is the way we found out. So it's always interesting. And this is before they sent an email, before they did anything else. Twitter was literally the first thing they had.
Yeah, in the marketing world, I often sometimes, we're going to say that I said that. I often sometimes tweet to somebody to let them know that I'm sending them an email.
Yes.
And I feel real guilty every time I have to do that. But I know some people that use Twitter very often and use email very infrequently. And I only do it when I know it's going to be somebody like that, right? And usually I try to do it via DM as opposed to tweeting at. But still, yeah, it feels weird, right? Like, hey, heads up, there's an email coming your way. Don't neglect it.
Yeah, it was kind of like when, in the 1990s, when you emailed someone, you then followed up with a phone call to be like, "Hey, I just emailed you. Check your email."
Yeah,
And yeah,
I remember those days.
yeah, those are good
Not
days.
fun.
Yeah, so I like that. Yeah, I like that concept of having a live chat. That's something I've seen. Obviously, the one-on-one live chat, that's quite common. But having that kind of group community, because I feel like a lot of people try to do this community thing of having like for example, a lot of folks have like Facebook communities, and if you're large enough, they're okay. But very quickly, I see it kind of turns into this like ghost town where it's just like, one or two people at the company posting random marketing messages, and it's not really a community. It's just
nobody's actually interacting with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's totally true. I fully recommend anybody dropping by our Discord to see how we do it if you're interested. It's totally open, and I think we do a good example of how you can use it. So feel free to join our community.
awesome.
Just to learn.
I think I'm going to put a link to that in the show notes so people can check that out. So, well, I think that's super helpful. I'm going to link to you guys in the show notes, and definitely put a link to the chat room. People come in there and just say hi to you, I guess. So that's pretty awesome. Anything else any links we should leave? Any places people can find you?
Well, we're available at antlionaudio.com. If you need, microphones, that's what we do. You've been listening to our product, a wireless microphone, actually, this whole time. So if you believe that you can't get good quality audio out of a wireless mic, we're here to tell you that's not true. You can. But that's all I really have to say. That's my self-promotion.
No, I love when people plug their own products. And if people are watching the video, they can check it out. It's this cool little, I don't know how to describe it.
Right there.
On the video, you can see it. So
that's the sound of it leaving its post and coming back.
Yeah, I've never seen it before, and he did it for the first time when we were talking before the show, and it was pretty neat. So people should definitely check out at least the video of this and see what you just did, because it's pretty cool. So thank you very much for coming on today.
Oh, thanks for having me.